Hi YouTube, my name is Mikaela and I am going to start my booktube journey this year. So you may not know who I am, but if you're interested, I am on other social platforms. I am on Booktok and Bookstagram. I've been on both of those platforms for about a year and a half and I love everybody that I have met, and I have been influenced to start my very own booktube channel. So this summer around June or July, I can't remember, I think it was June, I met some book girls that I've met on Booktok and who are really big on Bookstagram, and we made some content together and we actually became really good friends, and 3 of them have YouTube channels and have convinced me to start one finally. So a little bit about my reading journey. I started reading really young. My mom is an avid reader and she encouraged my brother and I to read as much as we could. English was her favorite subject, which became my favorite subject, which became my brother's favorite subject. So we're all very into reading, movies, music, all of the above. One of the first series that I remember reading avidly with my mom and my brother, we read the Harry Potter series together when I was in middle school, I want to say. So Harry Potter was a big factor in my reading, and my love for fantasy started there. I'm actually wearing Harry Potter merch. I also started really getting into fantasy movies very young. I remember the first fantasy movie I think was The Neverending Story with the dragon Falcor, and obviously Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Harry Potter, Practical Magic. I'm also a big Tim Burton fan and Guillermo del Toro. I love both of their art styles. I love the spooky beauty of like gothic literature and like gothic romance and tragedy. I love that. So yeah, fast forward to high school. I really didn't read that much just because I was in the age or the era, I guess, where reading just wasn't cool. And so I kind of fell into peer pressure of wanting to be cool and wanting to fit in, so I stopped reading in high school. Moved and started to go to college. Still didn't read that much, but I always, missed books and would still actively watch movies and stuff. So when I started college, I was around a lot of readers, oddly enough, and they weren't just reading for school, they were reading for fun. And I finally got pushed enough to start reading again. And the first book I read was actually It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. And I read a book, if I like it or enjoyed it, I will make my mom read it. And 10 times out of 10, my mom's gonna read it. So while I really didn't enjoy the book, I enjoyed one character in particular, and his name was Atlas. I told my mom to read the book because I liked Atlas and I wanted to see what she thought, and my mom also agreed that she didn't really enjoy the book either, but she enjoyed Atlas's character. So we bonded over that. And a few months later, I got the first ACOTAR book by Sarah J. Maas, and I have not gone back since. I read that book, how long ago was that? Probably like a year and a half now, maybe 2 years ago. I will say, when I first picked up that book, I did not enjoy it. It took me a while to really get into it. I hadn't picked up a fantasy novel in years, so the world building was daunting for me. Once I got past, I'd say probably the 30% mark is when it really started picking up for me, and I've been a fan ever since. I finished the first ACOTAR book, I want to say in like 2 days, and I immediately went to Barnes & Noble and bought the rest of the series because I was like, yeah, I'm going to binge this and it's going to be great. I finished the series in probably 2 weeks, I want to say, and then I was raving about it to my mom. My mom has read all of them and now my mom is hooked. And now here we are. This is only one of my bookshelves. I have 4. And so after ACOTAR, I refound my love for not only reading, but fantasy. I started reading other smaller fantasy books like The Veiled Kingdom, Fourth Wing, what's another one that I read? The Lightlark series. And then I eventually made my way to Throne of Glass, which is now a god tier series of mine. Yeah, so that's kind of a synopsis of how I got here. I started Booktok about a year and a half ago. ACOTAR and just kind of posting quotes and my thoughts and stuff. Love ACOTAR. I'm ready for the 6th book, and you guys aren't ready for the feral monster I will become when that next book comes out. Along with fantasy, I am also a big romance reader, specifically dark romance. Along with my ACOTAR journey, I started picking up dark romance books, and the first series that I picked up was the Never After series by Emily McIntyre. This series is fantasy, not fantasy at all, fairy tale retellings, and they're spicy, and that awakened something in me, I will say. Of course, coming from loving Tim Burton, Guillermo del Toro, gothic, dark, angsty romances, of course I was gonna love dark romance. I love romance, but I need it to be dark, I need it to be yearning, I need there to be tragedy, I need there to be emotion, I need there to be longing, and that itch was awoken for me. So after reading the Never After series, I dived into the series that everyone on Booktok was either loving or hating, and that was The Cat and Mouse Duet by H.G. Carlton. That was my first stalker romance. Again, another itch was scratched for me, and I learned a lot about myself with that. My favorite books to read are dark romance books, fantasy romance, and I'm leaning more into like contemporary romance and stuff, but I also love horror books, extreme horror. Sometimes I'm trying to dip my toe into other genres such as literary fiction, because I know those are like weird girl books and I'm a weird girl, obviously. And getting more into classic books as well. I'm looking at all of my bookshelves. I would also love to get back into more gothic literature, and I also have a huge collection of Stephen King books, so I would like to read more Stephen King, even though his writing is very hit or miss for me. I figured I would go over maybe some of my favorite books, some of my favorite FMCs, MMCs with you, and then maybe talk about like movies and music that I like as well. When it comes to books, I'll start with fantasy. One thing about me is I'm very easy to please. I feel like because I've been reading for so long, I will automatically know if a book is going to be a 5-star read, but I also know when I'm not going to like something in a book. We can start with fantasy, and you can actually see some of my god tier books up here. Number 1 is Throne of Glass. One thing about me, I'm gonna bring up Throne of Glass whenever I can. I love Throne of Glass. I don't care that Sarah J Maas was 16 when she wrote it. However, I could never, at 31 years old, I couldn't write that. She wrote some of my favorite characters in that series ever. I still think about those characters to this day. I love ACOTAR. I never said I wasn't basic. I don't read that much fantasy. I need to get back into fantasy, actually. I'm more of a dark romance girl now, so let's get into dark romance. My god tier series for dark romance 100% is the Edge of Darkness trilogy by Lee Rivers. Nothing has ever affected me emotionally, mentally, physically as that series has. Cade Mitchell is my number 1 book boyfriend. He's going to stay there forever. I guess he's a book husband at this point. I love that man down. Everything that he and Stacy went through in that series, they deserve the world, and I just want to hug them, and I think about them every single day. Another god tier dark romance series, which is up there, is the Legacy of God series by Rena Kent. There's something about the way she writes these crazy unhinged men, but romance between those characters is so good. And the fact that people dog her baffles me, because I enjoyed every second of all of her books. Currently reading her other books, but nothing has quite scratched the itch like the Legacy of God series. So Monty J, the Hollow Boys series. Similar to Legacy of Gods, it follows a group of guys who are crazy, unhinged, that they are down bad for their women. And the romance and the plot in this series was done so well, and Monty J is currently writing another series based in the world of the Hollow Boys series. It's like 2nd generation. The first book that Monty has put out was phenomenal, and I am ready for the next series. I'm ready for it. And recently I've been getting more into contemporary romance this year, and I actually have a few in my god tier, wouldn't you know. So the first one you can see right there, is the Boys of Tommen series by Chloe Walsh. Similar to the Edge of Darkness trilogy, this series makes you hee hee ha ha while also ripping your heart out and being the most gut-wrenching, painful books you ever read. They're so well done, and they touch on situations and topics that unfortunately happen in real life, and it's things you don't want to think about or talk about, but it's so important to be aware that this stuff does happen, and Chloe Walsh does it beautifully. The way she writes, poetic. It is juvenile. You are following high schoolers, and they turn into adults, and you're watching them grow and heal and go through all of the horrible traumas that they go through, but you also just feel this protectiveness and bond, and the family, the chosen family that comes with this series is done so well. So highly, highly, highly recommend Chloe Walsh in that regard. I flew through her series. And another contemporary romance, actually a sports romance that I just recently finished, is the Windy City series by Liz Tomforty. Oh my god, if you were to ask me or tell me 2 years ago, hey, you're really going to appreciate a contemporary romance that follows a rugby player and high schoolers while also loving a sports series of basketball players, hockey players, I would be like, you're fucking lying. I said, hey, I have FOMO. I have a lot of people recommending me these series, so why shouldn't I? And I'm so glad that I read them. They're so well done. The romance, the spice, the plot, everything. They're so immersive. The found family, the chosen family. Oh, god tier. What you can expect from my channel, I'm still trying to figure it out really, but I know for sure I'm going to do book recommendation videos just because I feel like I read and dabble in a lot of different genres, and sometimes maybe you don't know where to start and you're trying to start a new genre, and I would love to give recommendations in that regard. I also love shopping for books. I love going to Goodwill. I love going to my used bookstore, Barnes, Target. So maybe some vlogs, a little bookish day in my life, if you will. I would also love to just give maybe book reviews. One thing about me, I am not going to post a negative book review. I fully believe that if you're promoting a book or talking about a book on social platforms, 9 times out of 10, the author is probably going to see it, and it's different reading a review and hearing somebody speak negatively about your book. So that's just me. That's a personal thing for me. So if I do a book review, it's going to be a book that I enjoyed and I am recommending you read. I'm also very honest on my Goodreads. So if you want to follow like my Goodreads, of course there's books that I don't enjoy that I read, and then I post my review respectfully on there. I think I'm going to actually start physical. I'm trying to read more of my physical TBR because I have a lot of physical books that I have not read, and they all stare at me on my bookshelves. Maybe one day I will do a bookshelf tour. I have a partial one on my Booktok if you really want to see it, but I'll do a better one maybe eventually on this channel, but we'll see how it goes. So let's talk about some of my favorite FMCs and MMCs. Straight off the bat, favorite FMCs, Aelin Ashriver Galathinius and Manon Blackbeak from Throne of Glass, Nesta Archeron from ACOTAR. I also really enjoyed Diana from Book of Azrael. I've only read the first book and I already know that she's a god tier. I already know. Another FMC that I really love is Mia Sokolov from the Legacy of God series. And I also love Stacey Rhodes from Edge of Darkness. And I also really love Aoife Malloy and Lizzie Young from the Boys of Tommen series. Now for MMCs slash book boyfriends slash book husbands. Right off the bat, number 1, Cade Mitchell from the Edge of Darkness series. No one's ever going to top him. That's my baby daddy. Love him down. I also love Azrael from ACOTAR. Yeah, he doesn't have a book yet, but guess what? I love him. It's always the quiet ones. It's always the quiet ones. Also on the Sarah J. Maas train, Dorian Havillard. Yeah, Dorian Havillard. And also Rhys-Ann. I love Rhys-Ann. That was my first book husband. I love him. I love him, Dad. These are my fantasy ones. Oh, Kai Azar. Kai Azar, specifically Kai Azar and Fearless. He got progressively better as the series went on, but Kai Azar and Fearless, you want yearning, you want banter, you want flirty. Kai Azar. I also really love Legacy of Gods, Rena Kentman. Specifically Landon King and Jeremy Volkov. They're my favorite in the Legacy of God series. Nico Sokolov is my favorite character in the series. I feel like he's like a big brother. I feel the same way about Cassian from ACOTAR. He's like, yeah, they're hot, but that's my brother, you know? And Rook Van Doren from the Hollow Boys series. And recently a new one, Sam Kyle from Book of Azrael. I literally just forgot Xaden Ryerson from Fourth Wing. Xaden Ryerson from Fourth Wing. Xaden. Yeah, my bad. Sorry, Xaden. Specifically Iron Flame Xaden. And then Onyx Storm Xaden. Because Professor Ryerson. On that note, I can also do favorite book couples. Oh my god, and Joey Lynch. Joey Lynch. Sorry. Now turning it back to favorite couples. Because we literally just talked about Joey Lynch. Joey Lynch and Aoife Malloy from the Boys of Tommen series. God tier couple. God tier. They are beautifully flawed. I love them so much. They feel like my little children that I have to watch and want to nurture. I love them. Stacey Rhodes and Cade Mitchell from the Edge of Darkness trilogy. Again, I want to protect them with my whole heart. I love them so much. Violet and Xaden from Fourth Wing. A little bit of a spoiler if you haven't finished Throne of Glass, but Manon and Dorian. Minorian, if you will. Yeah, those are all I can think of right now. But my list varies. I have 2 running lists currently because I feel like I have to separate fantasy book boyfriends and dark romance book boyfriends. There's different categories, right? They have different things that there's different criteria, and those change pretty rapidly, but I will say consistently my top like 10 pretty much stay the same MMCs. So now that I've gotten through all of my books / bookish things that I wanted to talk about, let's talk about some of my favorite movies, just because I love movies and I love to talk about them and I love watching videos of people talking about movies. Just right off the dome, Sleepy Hollow by Tim Burton, Beetlejuice by Tim Burton, The Corpse Bride, you guessed it, by Tim Burton, Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro, Practical Magic. The book is by Alice Hoffman, but I don't know who the director is. And they're coming out with Practical Magic 2, which can't wait. The Goonies. Love The Goonies. I love Star Wars, specifically Revenge of the Sith, because Anakin, if you know, you know. I love Pride and Prejudice, the Keira Knightley version. That might be a hot take, but I love that. Phantom of the Opera, the Emmy Rossum, Gerald Butler version. I love Disney, specifically old Disney, Hercules. Favorite movie in the Disney franchise, along with Aladdin and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. / film. I could also do shows because I love shows as well. My favorite show of all time is Game of Thrones. Did the ending get ruined and it ruined the entire thing? Yes. However, I still love the characters in that show. So it's still a god tier for me. More Girls. That's my comfort show. I've watched it 10 times. I cry in the same episodes. I feel so deeply for all of these characters, and me and my fiance are Luke and Lorelai, so that as well. I also loved Arcane. Arcane was a great show that ended way too abruptly, and how dare they just give us 2 seasons. I felt so deeply for these characters in the short amount of time that we had with them. But I think about that show all the time. I also enjoy anime. I need to watch more anime because I read a lot more than I watch movies or shows. This might be controversial. My favorite anime is Attack on Titan, and Eren Yeager is my favorite anime man. As far as music goes, I feel like it's kind of similar to like my book taste, where I kind of dabble in a lot of different genres. However, I feel consistently rock has probably been the genre that I gravitate towards the most. Some musicians, bands, singers that I appreciate, listen to a lot are Deftones, Bad Omens, Sleep Token, Taylor Swift. I'm starting to listen more to Paramore again. Those are all I can think of right now. Yeah, what can I say? I like what I like. And if you have music, movie, shows recommendations, please send them my way. I love dabbling into different things, so. Circling back to movies, because I'm very disappointed in myself for not mentioning this, but I'm a big horror movie girl. I love scary movies. That's my favorite type of movie to watch. If it's not horror movie, it needs to be romance movie. I don't know what that says about me. I highly relate to that scene in Beetlejuice where Lydia is saying, I am strange and unusual, because that is me. Some of my favorite horror movies are, in fact, old slasher films from like the 80s and 90s. I love Scream. I'm a big Scream franchise gal. One of my first crushes from film was, in fact, Stu Maker from Scream. A lot of girls are Billy girls. I'm not. I'm a Stu girl. I'm also a big fan of A24 horror movies, so Hereditary, Midsummer, Talk to Me. What was another one? I can't think of another one. Pearl? Was that A24? I think so. I also love the Saw franchise. I'm a big Saw girl. I actually bring it up at work a lot with my coworkers and ask them if they could pick a Saw trap that they'd want to be in. If they got the opportunity to choose, which one do you think you'd survive in? Yeah. There might be something wrong with me, but you know. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.